Hey guys, it's Sean, and welcome to the first installment of So You Want to Make Your M17 Less Lethal. This is going to be the most basics in this first episode. We're just going to go over the marker, do's and don'ts, and some tips, things that you probably should know before you get going. You can see here, first thing you're gonna do when you take it out of the box is you're gonna put the barrel together and you're gonna put the tank on it and you're gonna crank that velocity and you're gonna go out shooting. Resist the urge. So starting from the very beginning, unboxing your marker, you obviously assemble the barrel. You'll notice here that I have removed my my buttstock guide. I absolutely hate these things. So I've just removed mine. Starting from the front, barrel, shroud. Right here, these three screws that are on both sides, that is holding your shroud in place. It is also securing your barrel block, which your barrel threads into. This is your dedent cover. So you'll find your detent, if you can see it down there. Maybe not. You'll find it located inside there. Magwell, trigger group. This is your selector switch, so the 0 is safety, 1 is semi-automatic, and the happy time figure 8 there is full auto. This is what's commonly referred to as the heat core regulator. You often heard the term heat core O-ring in an FSC, a first strike FSC. Well, it came originally from a Milsig marker. Now, Milsig is now been purchased, or the rights have been purchased by Valken to distribute in North America. So it's now the Vulcan M17. These are the two pins that locate and secure your heat core regulator to the rear. This is your velocity cap. And the cap does not turn to adjust velocity. You must turn the center set screw. This hex bar that is located right here is your PRV. It is adjusted down the center with an Allen key. So out of the box, going over this, the first thing you should do is get yourself a set of good Allen keys, metric Allen keys. M17 is all metric, as is the CQMF. They do include, with your kit, 2 of the most common ones you'll need to do any maintenance on this marker. There are 2 that are not in here. That would be a 4mm, which isn't necessary, but the 4mm fits your PRV. The next is, I believe it's a 2mm, and that fits these 3, yes, 2mm, it fits these 3 button head sockets at the top. The reason I say get yourself a set of Allen keys is most of these screws through the body here are screws. They're all separate screws on one side and on the other, and they're fitted in the middle with a sleeve. So to tighten and loosen them, you actually have to have an Allen key on both sides. So first thing, go over your marker out of the box. Take your Allen keys and just check all these screws are tight. Now, remember, this is a poly body and these are small screws. get into the habit of tightening stuff on these markers using this end, using the little L at the end to actually put the torque on it. You get in the habit of doing this, too many ugga duggas, and you'll be stripping these screws out in no time. So I'll just kind of quickly go over mine here. And there is a reason for doing this, and that is reliability, and that's what you want. So this marker is, even though it doesn't appear like it from the outside looking in, a clamshell design, a very good one. Okay, so and here's a perfect example. This back screw here that has this sling ring on it was loose. Not terribly loose, but this one is very important. If this comes loose, this sling ring comes loose, it's part of what fastens this trigger group here to the receiver of your marker, the upper receiver. And when this is loose, if this section kind of pulls away just a little bit, the sear is gonna slip here. It misses the bolt that's inside here. And yeah, you're gonna have misfires, automatic fires. A number of things can happen. So this one's important. I kind of always check this one when I go to pick my marker up to fire it. I mean, I tighten it before I put it away, but it's just habit. I kind of OCD a little bit. So whenever I go to just use this, I kind of put my finger on this side and I can feel that's tight now. I put my wrench on it. So once you've gone over all your screws, you know it's tight. Next thing. So I've removed my my guide bar here, but you can see I have installed this retention, I can't remember what it's called, this velocity cap, sort of this kind of stamped steel L bracket here. And I reinstalled it with the spacer that came out of that guide bar there. This is a safety feature. Later on, I'll end up probably removing it, but for the purposes of this video and maybe some new guys coming into the scene, this is a safety device. And what that does is, even during paintball velocities, just the shock from this marker, the vibration, I won't call it recoil, this cap can back out. So this bracket here is actually, it's forked into the top of this cap, which prevents it from backing out. The next thing is your PRV here. So we're gonna do a delete in the next video. This PRV here, pressure relief valve, I would not try and tighten it inside the marker. So if you get a leak from here, it means a couple of things. It means your tank pressure is exceeding the safety limit of your velocity setting. What you don't want to do is try and tighten it on the marker. I recommend removing this completely, which is the 4mm. You can see I haven't even taken this one out yet. So spin it off here. And actually putting an adjustable wrench on it. Let's see if I got one kicking around here. So if you're gonna tighten this down, take it off the marker, put an adjustable wrench on it, and try and tighten it in this manner. Whoop. Easier said than done, right? Now, this marker is factory set out of the box, and it would appear that I haven't done this in a long time. Well, I can tighten it more. So I can tighten this a little bit more. It's been a while since I had one, bought a new one of these guys. You can tighten it all the way up. Again, don't crank on these things, but this is the reason why it's important to do it outside the marker. This, you can easily strip your regulator here. You can see there's a little O-ring inside there. Actually, it's funny because my last marker actually had an O-ring. This looks more like a rubber kind of sealing washer. If you try and tighten that, you can see how much effort it took for me to tighten that PRV down. You can strip this right out of there. And then, so I've just recently found this particular piece. The regulator has over doubled in price. And it's kind of how I ended up with another M17, because it didn't make sense to spend almost $180 Canadian on a regulator when the marker was on sale for, you know, $100 more. Well, more than $100 more, $150 more. Yeah, so don't tighten that inside there. Take it out. We'll do a delete later, but in the meantime, you can tighten this up outside the marker, snug it up. That'll allow you to adjust your velocity a little bit higher. At this point, I recommend you don't do anything else. I know you want to turn that velocity screw so bad, but don't do it. Take your marker, take your tank, and in this case, I'm going to be testing at 800 PSI. I always recommend an on-off for the M17. So I'm using a GOG here. And this is, funny enough, this is a AliExpress regulator and AliExpress bottle. Both have proved to be very reliable, actually, for cheap. On-off. Reason for the on-off is, like many paintball markers, there are a select few. The VKS self-purges, and by self-purging, I mean when you air this marker, the bolt moves forward, chamber fills with air, and from the moment that you actually turn your on-off off, there is still air trapped in this air chamber, and you'll get a number of shots from it. It's not, in my opinion, the safest setup, because, you know, obviously you can shut it off and be a little bit careless and forget that there's air trapped in there, and you might pop off a few rounds. So you have to keep that in mind. Quality on-off will make your life easier. Unfortunately, this one does not self-purge. I've been doing this long enough now that I am fully aware of what this M17 is doing. So I'm comfortable using this GOG. I do have a Vulcan Ultra coming from Charles at Mercy Less Lethal. Now, I got carpal tunnel syndrome from my career path. So the twisting motion is really hard on my wrist, and that's the reason I choose these quarter turns. But something I learned, this new Vulcan Ultra actually self-purges. So it kind of looks like those Chinese twist ones, but Vulcan has designed it so that when you open it to close the marker off, so it sounds backwards, but you're opening it to close the air from the marker, it purges that air that I was just speaking about that gets trapped in here. So your marker essentially is air-free and degassed. So totally recommend you don't touch anything else. Get yourself a good on-off and go shoot your marker. A very important thing, because I know you guys are gonna go twist this anyways. You're gonna go turn this little set screw here, and I believe it's a 2.5 mil, yes. Do not ever adjust your velocity unless your marker is completely degassed. And by degassed, I mean you have removed your tank and you are 100% sure there is no gas in here. This is most important and less lethal because you're going to be removing some safety devices here, and at less lethal velocities, the pressure, and we'll get to the insides here in the next video. There's a brass piston here. The amount of pressure and force that is pressing against this cap is a lot. So if you try and force this screw down, essentially what you do is you fracture this cap. It's not very robust. It does do its job for paintball. And again, later on when I show the bypass, if you haven't already skipped through all my videos and found it, it also works for that, no problem. But you do not ever want to touch your velocity screw with gas in the marker. Ever. I can't stress that enough. It will ruin your day. But the bypass, obviously, even with a broken cap, if you blow your cap, you can still use it in the bypass. But just be mindful of that, guys. That's an important step. I know lots of new users that have busted their cap and and think their marker's ruined, and it puts a damper on things for sure. It does. Some other things to note. The factory barrel, I believe, is a 687 bore. Smooth bore, that is. Oh, you know what else I forgot? This is your adjustment here for full auto. Well, it actually adjusts your, it doesn't mechanically change anything in here. It becomes a stop to limit how far. So you can see here in semi-auto, trigger goes back so far. In full auto, it kind of goes right back into the trigger. So there is a set screw in here you can adjust, and it screws out the back of the trigger here and acts as a stop to limit how far you can pull this back. Full auto in M17 isn't like you just pull and hold it. It's more of a kind of, you just find the balance and away it goes. The full auto in M17 is mechanically timed, so depending on your bottle pressure, and the back pressure from whatever size projectiles and barrel you're using, is going to affect that. I don't recommend full auto just because it's hard on the marker. In my experience, this will shoot fairly reliably up to about 30 joules in full auto. Once you get above that, timing sort of starts to get out of whack, and you'll start having misfeeds, jams, and those are things you just don't want. This marker is pretty robust. I mean, you get a jam in there, it just crunches everything up. It's got a big ass bolt in it, so keep your fingers away from it. Hope we're not missing anything here, guys. It's always been a good marker to me. Oh, okay, here's another thing. So there's this plug in the back here, you'll notice in the M17. This is the BRH plug. There is an option to install a charging handle, but it's not a charging handle. It's called a BRH. It's bolt return handle. It is only designed to clear jams in paintball. It can be modified to work with LL, but I don't recommend it. It really doesn't add anything except maybe some looks. So what happens with the BRH is, well, when the velocity is cranked up, this bolt is cycling hard, and the BRH has a channel cut in it that was really only designed to shoot 275 feet per second with a 3-gram ball. So when that bolt is ramming forward, it's also jamming in this channel here, and eventually it'll bend your guide pin. It can break your bolt. It can cause all kinds of headaches. Again, we'll get into some of those more in-depth parts when we open this up in the next video. So don't get the BRH. Just keep it the way it is. Nothing wrong with it like this. It'll save you some headaches, trust me. You know, if you're feeling up to it, hey, have at her. We almost forgot, when you're tightening your screws, check your mag too. Sometimes these are loose. It all helps with feeding in the end. All right, well, let's go shoot some projectiles. So I will be testing on, I think I mentioned already, 800 PSI. This is bone stock, out of the box. The only thing we did in this video was we removed the pressure relief valve, used a crescent wrench, or adjustable wrench, sorry, and tightened it outside the marker before screwing it back in to our marker. And that's it. Let's go see what it shoots. I think I'll use some Joule V2. Yeah, we'll start with the Joule V2s. Okay, so got my Joule V2s here. Some HPs mixed in there, but that's all right. So, important step in loading a Vulcan M17 magazine is to wind your winder. We'll get into some other stuff later on, but for the purposes of this marker coming out of the box brand new, we're just gonna leave everything as is. There's a winder inside here. There's a follower here and a cable that wraps around like this. If you do not wind this and you just start pushing projectiles, and what happens is this cable doesn't actually coil up here. It'll just start bunching up inside, and it might work a few times. Well, probably more than a few times. And then that cable will bind up. It'll get wrapped around the spring that's inside here, and usually the follower will just stop somewhere because it's bound up in the cable, and that's it. Your mag will just stop feeding. Extreme case is it actually just snaps the cable off, and I've had both of those scenarios. So wind your mag. I do not wind it, well, I should say, you don't wind it like, you just wind it till it gets tight. You don't want to crank on this. That's it, done. Grab your projectiles. Of course, all these keys are on top here. All right, I'm gonna have to dig deep here, guys. And you know what? I wound that mag all the way so I would fill it up, and I'm not gonna fill it up. I'll put in 6 rounds. What you want to do if you're not loading a full mag is put your finger kind of just down here, down the feed neck. So this is the feed neck this is your bar detent. The purpose of this bar detent is only to keep your projectiles inside the mag, outside of the marker. Once this is inserted into your marker, this bar detent releases. There's a little groove inside here and allows the balls to flow into your marker. So never a good idea just to release the follower at free air. It'll come shooting out of here, and it's not really a big deal. You can just push it back in, but it's just a good habit to get in. Just stick your finger down here, and right here, there's a little release button. So there's this L shape here, and then you can see that little extra tab sticking up. Just press that, and you can hear it wind up. And there's your balls at the top. Things you're gonna see, I'm gonna test fire this for you guys, that are normal. And I've seen this has come up a lot recently, is why does my marker drop balls when I pull the mag? Well, it does so because that's a design inherently for paintball. It's the way these markers feed. So it is completely normal to have balls drop when you didn't discharge your full magazine. Also, I don't know if it's going to do it this time, and that's the reason why I chose the Jewel V2s. They're a little bit larger than the Canada Riot balls I normally use. Is a factory dent is kind of weak. It's made of sort of a foam material, and this bothered me early on with the M17 is when you aired this up, so you got your tank in the back and you turn your on off and you hear the bolt click, it literally bumps around out the barrel. Like slow motion, it's like boop, and just rolls out the barrel. I've recently discovered that that was 100% attributed to the detent. So there is a fix for that, again, upcoming video. But for the purposes of this, I will demonstrate the ball bump, if it will happen with the Jewels. It may not because they're a little bit bigger. But they probably will with the Canada Riot balls. That is completely normal, guys. We can fix it. It's a non-issue. Just keep on watching the videos and we'll get to it. So, this is my first new M17 in a while, and there's a couple of things that I noticed that are a lot different than my old Valken M17. My old M17 is still a Valken. It's about 2 years old now. It has had well over 3,000 rounds through it, so it may be a little broken in, but I don't ever remember the mag literally being, it's tight in there. Like there's no, I'm talking maybe a 1/16 of an inch wiggle. Sorry, that's the sling ring rattling there, but the mag doesn't rattle at all, and that used to bug me. And people would run electrical tape around there to kind of shim the mag up, but yeah, that does not seem to be a problem on this, at least with 0 rounds on it. The other thing is my selector switch is quite positive compared to my early Valken. And even the sort of side-to-side motion. So maybe they've gotten a little better with their tolerances, but let's go shoot this. Always gonna miss something, guys. You know, definitely not a video pro here. So I'll demonstrate this right now while I got it, but this is your ball drop. So this magazine's loaded with 6 rounds. And there is the 1 ball, 2 balls that come out of your marker if you don't discharge the whole magazine. So if you're doing mag checks, you are gonna have ball drops. Just be aware of that. So I'll just quickly throw these back in here. if this is your first time, you took the marker out of the box and you're about to put the tank in for the very first time, I highly recommend, you don't know how long this marker has been sitting anywhere. Take the oil that's in the box, the silicone oil that comes with your marker, and I like to put four drops in there. Just to get her started. Grab my tank with my on-off, and we'll thread it in there. Marker is empty, mags out, balls are out, there's nothing in the breech. Put the oil in, air it up. There you go. Your marker's aired. Good idea, kind of just listen around for any leaks. Don't hear nothing. Take it off of safety, point it in a safe direction, and just fire a couple of dry fires. What that does, guys, is sends that oil you just put in the ASA here through your heat core system. Depending on how long it's been sitting, can help lubricate things. Always a good idea to do that. I generally put 1 or 2 drops in every tank. Every tank that I drain completely into this marker. Some might think that's excessive. The M17 really doesn't complain about a whole lot, and in my opinion, if the oil starts coming flying out of the sides of your trigger group here, you're probably putting it in too much, but I have not seen that in my marker, except in the most extreme cases. That's why I know it will happen. But it's a good idea just to put a drop or 2 in before you screw a tank in every time. So here's a demonstration. I just shut my air off, and let's see how many dry fires I have left. Oh, but take it off safety. 1. I got 1. I'm actually surprised that it was only 1. So now that it's degassed, it's quite easy to remove the tank. You see how easy that was? And you'll know, I should take that all the way out. There, see, there was still a little bit of air trapped in there. I could feel the tension on the tank. Something that you'll get used to. And it applies to a lot of other markers. If it doesn't feel right, then there's air trapped in there. And there may not be enough air to cycle your trigger, but it is still a danger to you, because if that air is not drained and you go to service this marker in any way, that may cause a cap to launch at you, a PRV to launch at you, so on and so forth. So always make sure your marker is 100% degassed before doing any work on it, including adjusting the velocity. I will say that over and over again, because until you actually do the bypass, this will be the bane of your existence if you're not careful. So 6 Joule V2s loaded up. Let's see if we can demonstrate the ball drop here. So I'm going to air the marker. And there you go. See that ball roll out at the end? So it does do with the Joules too. It's not a shiny white ball problem. That is your detent. We'll fix that very shortly. Just get used to it for now, because you're just learning the ropes here, guys. You want to have some fun. Your marker's aired now. I'll just chrono a couple of these so you get an idea, and I think that's about it. We'll move on to the next one. Remember, velocity is untouched, so these are going to seem really weak, but it's still fun nevertheless, and it's always good. Just go, get your marker going, shoot it, you know, at these lower velocities. It's not that it's safe, but it's safer. Because I'm telling you, a lot of people underestimate the power when we're speaking in joules. I mean, 30 or 40 joules is going to hurt. It will break windows, it will do all kinds of damage. I mean, 10 or 12 joules will break windows, but I'm talking like, it's gonna hurt a lot more than you think. So you just gotta be careful. Get to know your marker out of the box. Have some fun with it before you dig in and start messing with stuff. It's better to understand it now, and then you can reverse it if you run into a problem during a modification. You have a better understanding of what you did wrong, or you have a better understanding to ask the right question in the groups, and we can help you answer. So let's chrono it. One 66. 166. 166. One thing never gets old with the Milsig, guys. The M17, sorry. The Vulcan M17. That. Consistency. This thing. Okay, well, it went up a little. You can't complain about up, right? These things are damn consistent. 800 psi, 166 feet per second out of the box with an 8-gram joule. You know what? Let's throw some riot balls in there. All right, 9.9 gram Canada hybrid riot balls. So these are much heavier. Feet per second is going to be down, but probably calculations are going to show joule for joule they're relatively close. Oh, 146, 148, 148. 144, 148, 144. I think that was the last one. Yep. That's it for now, guys. Mag's empty. Have a look inside. There's nothing in the breech. Magazine is empty. Don't forget, if you're not using a on-off that has a degassing feature or self-purging feature, shut it off, point it in a safe direction, take it off safety, of course, dry fire it, and then remove your tank. You hear there's still a little bit of air in there, and you're safe. Stay tuned for the next video.